Yo, what is up? Welcome to the Sunday Sermon with Mike, your mentor. Hope you guys had a great week and you're getting ready for what lies ahead and to go out there and crush the week ahead, whatever that looks like for you. So, if you are watching this, thank you for tuning in with me. I really appreciate you giving me your time and your attention. And this week, we're continuing our talk about eagles, and particularly, why does the Bible, right, compare men to eagles? Why not any other animal? Why not like a lion or a rhino or some other bird? Why the eagle, right? And we've been exploring this topic for a couple of weeks now, and we're going to start to get into talking about some of the other enemies that eagles face and what that means for our lives and how we're supposed to look at that. So I appreciate you being with me. If you're watching this live, show me a little love in the comments. Comment #live. If you're watching the replay, you can comment #replay, and then always leave your comments or questions below. If you're new to this page, quick intro. My name is Mike King, aka Mike the Mentor, and this page is my way to give back, right? My way to help change my community, change what happens in my circle of influence, because in my opinion, the world is the way that it is because men have refused to accept the responsibility for the things we've been given stewardship over our families, over our marriages, over our friendships, over our positions at work and in the community. And when men fail to accept these responsibilities for a multitude of reasons, chaos ensues. We have a crazy high number of kids growing up in single-family homes, the majority of them without their dads, unfortunately, and only men can bestow manhood on another man. And when a boy does not have his father in his life, physically, emotionally, or mentally, to show him what a man looks like and what that embodies, we wind up with the things that we have today. The Me Too type stuff, with guys, taking advantage or trying to take advantage physically of women, and just everything that goes along with that disrespect, right? Honor used to be a big thing in our culture, and among synonymous with manhood, and those two things have grown apart for a number of reasons, and it's time as men that we bring honor back into manhood and what that looks like. So if you're curious about my story and the things that I've been in, you can watch any of the past videos. Typically, the first Sunday sermons, I walk through almost my entire life up to where I'm at right now, age 38. So just taking all of that wisdom, all of those growing pains, all of those huge mistakes that I made along the way, and sharing them with you guys and the lessons learned, so that hopefully you don't have to repeat the same mistakes, and you can learn from what I either did right or what I did wrong in a lot of those situations. So tonight we're going to jump into it, share my screen with you, and continue talking about eagle-like leadership and what that looks like. So week 43, rocking and rolling, eagle-like leadership, part 4. So we've been talking about eagles overcoming the enemies in their lives, and last week we looked at how eagles overcome the ground, and how the ground is actually probably the most dangerous enemy to an eagle, as it soars, and then it has to get close to the ground to scoop up its prey. To catch currents back up into the sky, all those types of things, and the mistakes that can be made. This week, we're going to start off by talking about snakes, right? And we all encounter snakes. There's snakes that come into our lives, and a lot of times we don't recognize them as snakes, as we'll see. When we look at the Bible, when we talk about the Bible, the devil came as a snake. What up, Devontae? And we are compared to eagles in the Bible. And it's not by coincidence, right? Out of all the animals, why would these two animals or these two creatures be used. And snakes on purpose will climb up to an eagle's nest when the mom and the dad aren't around, and they will try to eat the eaglets, right, that are in that nest. And it's funny because the snake will never deal with a mature eagle. And when we have snakes that try to come in our lives, usually those type of people that are looking to take advantage of others, they're not going after the people that are mature in their knowledge and their wisdom, and the environment around them, whatever that may be, whether it's the family environment, whether it's the business environment, whether it's just you out in your community. They're looking to prey on those who haven't reached maturity. So snakes go for the immature eagles. And as people, snakes can come against us or look to go for us if we're immature emotionally, right? Or if we're immature mentally. And even, unfortunately, if we're immature physically. And those all can look like different things. So we need to protect, right, as if you consider yourself a leader and a mature person, we need to protect the immature people in our life. And that doesn't mean, that's not a slight to those people, right, because we're all immature compared to someone else who maybe has more life experience than us. So this is why I harp so much on the importance of mentoring and being a mentor, right, and the 10-year rule. Having a mentor who's 10 years older than you because they're in the next phase of life, and then you being a mentor to someone who's 10 years younger than you because you're in the phase of life that they're going to be entering, and that you can protect them or point out, potential blind spots or potholes that they could be facing in the next 10 years of their life, and you could help guide them and make their journey a lot easier, just like your mentor can do the same for you. And this is how we protect those immature people, right? We help them think about what they need to do, from a wisdom perspective, from a knowledge perspective. And how we do this is, one, we want to listen to their concerns, right? We want to spend time with them and hear them out and hear their story and hear what they're going through, and then empathize with them. That doesn't mean make excuses for them by any means, right? Because people have to be held accountable. We all need to be held accountable in order to get the most out of us. But we empathize because we too knew what it was like to go through that stage of our lives. And then what we need to do, like I said, is we need to point out possible traps and possible blind spots in a certain situation. And I'll give you an example. So I met with somebody that is facing, their wife wants to leave them, and their wife gave them an ultimatum because they are making a decision that is slowly eroding away the trust in their relationship. And I will just say that they're choosing to watch things that don't build their marriage up, right? That don't build the image and the they just don't add, it doesn't add anything to their marriage, right? And I'm sure if you're a man, you know what I'm talking about, and you get the hint, right? And I could come along that person and I could, I guess, read them the riot act, or approach it in a multitude of different ways. But what I felt like God was wanted me to do was to come alongside them and just ask them, dig and find out, okay, why do you feel like this is important in your life? Why do you feel like you need to do this? Well, like, tell me this backstory. Like, how did you get to this point? And not condemn them. And then it was really crazy because he was talking to me about why this was happening and how they got to the point that they're at, and how he was confused because at one point this seemed okay to his spouse, and then now all of a sudden it's not. And God just spoke to me and had me, because I'm at fault of this too. I've been at fault of this in the past, and remind me of something that he told me before, and I shared that with him right from a perspective of wisdom. And I said, what if it's not actually about the act that you're doing itself? What if it's simply that what is supposed to be sacred between you and your wife, you are not only sharing with your wife, but you're sharing with this other thing, and she wants that just to be between you two? And a light bulb went off in his head. Do I know if it's going to change his behavior? I don't. But his response was, wow, I never thought of it like that, right? And that's the role that we're supposed to take when we are trying to protect those who aren't where we're at, right? And that's not a slight to him by any means, right? I had to go through some crazy stuff to learn that as well. And the last thing that I want him to experience is him losing his marriage over that, because he's not able to see it from his spouse's perspective. So, all right. The crazy thing is, when this snake is crawling up into the nest, the baby eaglet cries out, and I guess it's a really eerie sound. And I should actually, because this isn't my material, but I feel like it's very important, so I want to give props to who it came from. And this is Dr. John Burns, and this was part of a leadership class that I took myself at my church several years ago. And this stuff really resonated with me then and got me thinking, and God wanted me to share it with you guys. So when this eagle or this eaglet cries out, check this out, right? The parent can hear this, and eagles will fly as high as 2 miles above the nest, right? So they can hear this shriek 2 miles away, and then they will dive at 124 miles per hour to get back to that nest as fast as possible. I mean, that's crazy. I can only imagine what that looks like. And then what will happen is the parent eagle will grab the snake, they'll rip it apart, and then they don't toss it out of the nest. They feed it to its young, right? It feeds it to its babies. And that's pretty crazy. And what that shows us, right, is what the devil means for evil, God's going to use for good. God turns it from bad and uses that thing for good. That snake that's in our life, that's trying to hurt us, trying to put a wedge between a relationship, that's trying to poison our life, right? God can take that thing, rip it apart, and turn around and use it to feed those who aren't as mature as us, or aren't at that exact stage as we are, or haven't experienced what we've experienced, but are on their way towards that, or in the midst of that, right? And that's what happened, right? Two things in my life, or two prevalent things in my life. Probably the biggest test that I've had to go through with my own snakes is, one, right, the devil tried to steal my manhood. I didn't have a dad there, and it caused these huge wounds in my heart, wounds of abandonment, wounds of rejection. And out of a good desire to mend those wounds, I turned to something that could have been good, but I over-medicated and abused that thing. And what that was relationships with girls. And I sought them out. And then that became what could have been good and could have been healthy, became a hindrance at times in my life. And I've talked about those specifics in videos past, and how that led me to compromise a lot of standards. It allowed me to compromise a lot of things that were in my future, and that I had the opportunity to take care of, but I chose the compromise versus the reward, so to speak. And then how that thing even carried over into my marriage and destroyed my marriage, or almost destroyed my marriage, and everything that I had to go through, everything me and my wife had to do to try to repair that. in the years, right, the decade plus of getting to where we are now and having built up that trust to somewhat of a reasonable level. And the cool thing about that is, right, God has taken that mess and He's made it my message. 2 men, 2 families, 2 marriages, right, to make a difference in people's lives for me, both me and my wife in our own different ways. So the second enemy that I want to talk about tonight of eagles is the falcon. And the falcon is actually one of the eagle's closest cousins. So you would think, right, that, hey, this is my cousin, he's family, he means good for me, but we've all got those people in our lives who it seems like they have good intentions, but really underneath all of that, their intentions aren't pure, and they're people that we need to distance ourselves from and stay away from, to be honest with you. And the crazy thing about a falcon is a falcon will kill an eagle for no reason, just because the eagle is bigger and intimidates the falcon, right? So it could be things in our own life that we're doing, right? Goals that we're trying to achieve, levels in our life that we're trying to get, and we have these people in our lives that instead of wanting to lift us up, wanting to come alongside of us and run that race with us at the same pace, as we try to climb out of that environment, they're there trying to pull us down, right, to do whatever they can to stop us, and that comes from their own woundedness and their own hurt, and that, unfortunately, and they're not at a point in their lives where they're mature enough to be able to see that for what it is, and they see that out of jealousy, out of resentment, and that turns into, you just think you're better than me, or look at you and everything you're doing. And I'm sure we could all think of instances or people like that we've had in our lives. And the crazy thing about a falcon is it'll fly high up, right, higher than the eagle, and it will be behind the eagle in its blind spot, right? So if you imagine yourself an eagle flying through the air or soaring, and then the view from the falcon is he's looking down and he can see the back of the falcon's head, because the back of the eagle's head, because the eagle can't see behind itself, even though eagles have tremendously good vision, as we'll see on the weeks to come. It's the one blind spot, right? And the falcon knows that, and it takes advantage of that to try to kill the eagle. And that's why we have to be careful with people in our lives, and we have to know who we can trust with what information. And if you guys have been with me at any part of this journey, you know that I reach out and I make myself available to talk with people and to help men walk through things. But it's important, right, because we all have these wounds we carry, but we need to honor those wounds, and we need in a way that brings healing and not hurt. And a way that we can bring hurt is if we share those wounds with someone that is not safe, that can't be trusted. They will use that wound to inflict harm upon us, and even to potentially try to kill us, right? And they are, like in this example, the falcon, who is supposed to be family, but turns around and takes that and uses that against us. And the eagle only has one blind spot, and that's up in behind it. And the interesting thing about an eagle is it doesn't guard against falcons. It doesn't go around all day thinking about the falcon and what might happen to it. And I think that that's an important reminder for us and some of the things that we worry about. We need to be more concerned about the things that, one, we can control, two, the goals that we have our eyes set on for ourselves, for our family, and for our lives, and not be so quick to worry about what necessarily might happen to us, right? Our job is to trust in God. And the cousin of the red hot Christian is the lukewarm Christian. And even if you're not a believer and you're watching this, this person, like I said before, is somebody who is not running the race at the same intensity and at the same pace as you, wherever you're going. They're behind you, and you don't guard against them because you're already ahead of them. But because you're already ahead of them, you have to be careful because you don't think that there's any danger. And you need to survey the relationships you have and really think about who is running ahead of you and encouraging you to catch up, right? Inspiring you to go faster, to go harder, to do bigger and better things. And the person that is behind you, right, slowly gaining on you or encouraging you to slow down, right, because you're leaving them behind rather than them pick up the pace and run with you. And you need to use wisdom when it comes to discerning those people and if it's right for you to involve yourself with them less. And just remember this, there's a saying, and it's bad company corrupts good character. And it doesn't take a lot, right? A little bit of leaven spoils the loaf. So some of the greatest opposition that you have in your life is actually not the devil at all. If you're a believer, it's other Christians that aren't sold out for God like you are. If you're not a believer, it's other people in your life who aren't sold out to whatever cause or whatever goal or whatever thing you're running towards. They're not. And they're just looking to slow you down because they don't want to be left behind, because they're not willing to deal with their own woundedness, with their own junk that they're carrying around. And people want to be around like people. So when you're taking steps to better yourself, at times that can be intimidating to those people, right? And they're going to scratch and they're going to claw and do everything that they can to make sure that you don't leave them behind, right? And you'll know it's a good test, right? If they're doing things to try to bring you back to their level, you really need to think about getting away from them. If they're doing things, if you're moving ahead and then they're doing things to try to move ahead with you, to run alongside with you, they want to be a part of what you're doing, then that's probably a good relationship to continue to hold on. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight and share those two things with you, because they're important. What is going on here? They're important things to think about, as we continue in on this study. I would encourage you to take stock of the potential snakes in your life, and maybe you're playing with snakes right now. Maybe you're handling them and you're this close from getting bit. You're doing something that is not edifying of your marriage, is not edifying of your relationship with God, is not edifying of your friendship or of your position in your community. And maybe there's someone in your life who's been trying to point that out to you, who's been trying to warn you, hey man, you need to think about that. I would suggest that you take a long, hard look at that warning so that you don't crash and burn, right? Leading up to what I did to blow up to my marriage, I had people who, thank God, intervened in my life, and they told me the truth. And even though they told me the truth and I got away from that circumstance, I didn't stay away. And because I didn't stay away and I went back to that, I almost destroyed my marriage. Huge life lesson for me. Hardest thing I've ever been through. Getting that trust back. I didn't waste, but how could I not think of what my marriage and my relationship with my wife would look like had I not used those 10 years to rebuild everything up that I had lost in an instant. Right? So be encouraged. Take stock of your life. Take stock of the relationships that you have, the people that you're allowing to come into your life and carry weight or have influence. And as always, I tell you this stuff, guys, because I love you, because I care about you, because ultimately I'm being obedient to what God has put on my heart. But as always, if you need anything, if you need to talk about something, if you need to share something that's just been riddling you with guilt and with shame, I'm here. Those things aren't from God, right? God doesn't put guilt on you. God doesn't put shame on you, right? There's righteous conviction. There's, you're better than this. I didn't make you for this. I want more for you. Reach out. Nothing you're going to say is going to surprise me. Nothing. With all the people I've spent, all the guys I've spent one-on-one time with, all the guys that I've had the honor of being a part of their lives through a lot of the workshops and a lot of the events that I've gotten to staff, I've heard it all. And when I say I've heard it all, I've heard it all. So if you want to continue to carry around that shame, carry around that guilt, and let the devil beat you up with it and condemn you about it, as your bigger brother, your older brother, your bigger brother, so to speak, right? Okay, that's your choice. But you can drop it at any time. And you can walk away from it. And you can get freedom from that thing. All you got to do is be willing to get with somebody that you can trust, that's safe, and bring it to the light. Once it's in the light, it has no power. No more power. Can't be used over you. It's like the movie 8 Mile and Eminem when he goes into the final battle and he says everything about him that other rapper could use against him to make fun of him. He says it first, and then the dude has nothing to say. Mic drop. It's the exact same thing with the devil. When you bring it to the light, he can't say anything about it. So that's my encouragement to you tonight. I ain't going nowhere. So when you're ready, I'm here. I love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow for My Life Monday. Have a good night.